Summer is in full force, my friend. So you may hear my dog, my kids. My house is louder than it typically is, which I love and also comes with some challenges. Today we're talking about screens, video games, phones. This is a very common concern for parents. It's a very common bone of contention between parents and kids. It's also a very common bone of offense. Well, I didn't give my kid a phone at 13, or you bought what video game for your son, or any of those types of things. And there are a lot of experts out there saying what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, different rules that you should have around when to give your kid a phone, what kind of phone, video games, television, Netflix, all of those things. So I'm not going to talk about any of that because I trust that you're very smart and you know what works best for your family. And that if you've been listening, if you've been here for a while with me at Pivot Parenting, you know that I teach you to follow your intuition, that you know what is best for your family. Definitely learn and then assess your own situation and make rules around screens. I highly recommend having rules, boundaries, standards, expectations. Just like we wouldn't leave our kids alone with sticks of dynamite or loaded guns, we do not want our kids unchaperoned, so to speak, with technology. But it is not a one-size-fits-all. And yes, there are studies that show, for example, Instagram is bad for our girls, specifically for their mental health and sense of self. I strongly suggest, did you know how like there's Google Maps and Google Images? There's also a thing called Google Scholars. And if you find Google Scholars, just like you find Google Maps or Google Images, you can search peer-reviewed published studies. All you have to do is read the abstract. That's kind of the summary of the article. And you can find information firsthand around what you're curious about. I did this, ironically, when I was still in college, which I went just a few years ago as a mother. My son was in his full height of video games. And in my English class, we had an entire term paper that we had to use Google Scholar to review published articles and then write the term paper about that. And so my synthesization, is that how you say it? I synthesized information that I got from published, well-documented articles on video games and our kids. Now, this was a few years ago, so maybe there are different studies. I highly recommend you staying current on anything that you find relevant and helpful. But when I wrote this, I was flabbergasted at how wrong I actually was. That video games do have positive effects on our kids. They do not. There's no correlation between shooter crimes, like the mass shootings that we have, or violence generally, and violent video games. I learned all kinds of things, and it was really eye-opening, and it allowed me, this was pre-coaching, this is my pre-coaching brain, it allowed me to stop white-knuckling around my son's throat when it came to video games, which was a beautiful, beautiful thing for our relationship, and something that I hope this information that I share with you will also give you. But again, I want you to research out experts, figure out what works for you, and come up with your own rules. I have an entire podcast episode also on rules. It's called Letter of the Law. You can search it on my website or on any platform that you like to listen to Pivot Parenting on. What am I going to talk about today? I am going to talk about 2 simple steps to make screen time less contentious, more peaceful, less dramatic, more connecting. Before I dive into this, I want to preface with a little story. I was talking with one of my kids, and they wanted to know the how of something. I don't even remember. But they were like, yeah, but how do you do that? I think it was something to do with relationship, friendship dynamic or something. We all do this. How do you ride a bike? Exactly how do you know if you're in labor or how to give birth if you've never done it before? Or how to have a teen if we've never done this before? We think we've got it down pat, and then puberty hits and it just all gets blown apart. How to have a marriage that's healthy, how to lose weight, especially when your hormones are headed toward menopause, how to get your teen to like you. We get really caught up in the how. And that's fair because we want the simple answer. The truth is, there isn't a checklist that if you do these things, you'll get what you want. A one-size-fits-all, 1 + 2 = 3 type of solution. We want this in life struggles, but rarely is this appropriate. And so when I say I have 2 steps, yes, I do. And they are very loosely held in the sense of how they look. Because how I do one thing could be completely different of how somebody else does the same thing. But we can both get to the same result that we're wanting in our own special how-to way. Does that make sense? So these are more like 2 principles because principles remain the same for all of these things. We can learn principles and then apply them, the how, in a unique way to our situation. We can take different principles and meld them together to create something original to be our perfect fit. Like everything I teach on my podcast with my clients and just chatting with friends, anything out of my mouth is probably just opinion. Take what you want, leave what doesn't work for you. That doesn't hurt my feelings. It doesn't mean that either of us have done anything wrong. There's just a lot of different ways to get where we want to be. There are 2 things that have worked for me and for my clients to find balance and harmony with tech in your home. And you'll bounce between these 2 things or 2 steps like rungs on a ladder, back and forth with forward momentum, getting higher or better as you move along. And also, just so you know, messing up, I'm doing little air quotes, you can't see me, messing up or falling into old habits is still forward momentum. You can never go back to square one, my friend, because you're gaining strength and wisdom, and getting it wrong, slipping into old habits, that is part of the process. Congratulations if you do that. You're right on track. It's seeing what you've done. It's repairing. It's trying again. Just like learning any skill, reverting to old habits doesn't mean anything other than that's part of the process. Congratulations. So as I talk about these 2 things, it is not an invitation to beat yourself up, to judge yourself, to be hard on yourself. It's just part of the process. All right, my friend, are you ready? This is a simple process. The principles that tend to dictate health and happiness is what I'm trying to teach here. So then you can take what feels like a good fit and apply it uniquely to your family. This means it will not look the same as anybody else. That's how it's supposed to be. All right. I'm going to step off my soapbox. It's only because I love you. Oftentimes, our sense of value, the quality of who we are as a parent, if we're a good parent or a bad parent, if we're doing what's right, is tied into what our kid is doing. A lot of that is what they are consuming virtually, whether it's porn, video games, way too much Netflix, Instagram, doom scrolling, TikTok, all of that. We tie our sense of self into what our kids are doing. And then our kid wants what they want, which is to feel good and to have fun. And then you have two people battling it out to get what they want, to feel good. And it's the perfect storm, because for us to feel good, we need to feel like our kid is safe, like they are growing, like they are learning, like they are developing and becoming who we want them to become. And oftentimes that is in direct opposition in our brain to sitting on the couch and scrolling TikTok or glued to a video game. So we need them to get up and go do something productive for us to feel good. But our kid wants to feel good by playing video games or scrolling because that gives them a dopamine hit. And dopamine feels good and we like it and we're hardwired to like it. It means they have a healthy brain. If your kid likes screens, congratulations, they have a healthy brain that responds to stimuli that has been manufactured to specifically get them to like it. Healthy brain. So we have to drop our sense of self, our desire to calibrate our feelings off of our kids' behavior in order to end this tug of rope, so to speak. Does that make sense? So this is step one. We have to do our emotional work. We have to separate if we are a good parent or not based off of what they are doing or not doing. Really simple in principle, trickier in application. This is what I talk to with most of my clients. Pretty much, if I just keep poking in the same spot and digging and uncovering, it always comes back to, well, I'm not a good parent because the kid is doing something the parent doesn't like. So we have to embrace some simple truths, and this is our work. It does not involve our kid changing at all. We don't even have to have a conversation with them about it. This is our work. Number one, you are a good parent. You are. Perfect doesn't equal good. If we are waiting until we are perfect, we will never be a good parent. And guess what? When you believe you're not a good parent, you act like not a good parent. I invite you to consider that you are just a good parent. Good parents make mistakes because kids need to know how to repair relationships. Another truth that we need to embrace, they're acting age appropriate. They want what they want and they're going to fight for it. They're going to sneak for it and they're going to lie for it. Sometimes they even talk and fight dirty. They say rude things so that you'll feel bad and leave them alone. And that is simply because they want what they want. Age appropriate. Nothing has gone wrong. Screens are meant to be appealing. And if they like it, again, that means they are a healthy, brain functioning kid. Screens are not moral, nor is time spent on them. Good, bad doesn't exist in the activity of scrolling or playing games. Perhaps content could be described as moral or immoral, but not the time spent. Screens are something very clever people created to be appealing, and they are good at their job. That's it. No drama necessary. Teens, to varying degrees, are going to push back and make things a battle of wills. They want to win. It's psychologically, developmentally normal for them to be the victor. This is important in healthy development. We want to work with it, not against it. Another truth is that tech is part of life and not something that can cease to exist for us or our kids unless we're willing to move very, very far away. Them shunning screens isn't the goal or likely to happen. Balance is the goal. Awareness is the goal. Self-restraint most of the time is the goal. We all occasionally binge a show, or we're playing video games or scrolling into the night. That isn't the end of the world. And we all reap the reward of that, which is feeling terrible the next day, and we can learn from that mistake. Another truth, their screen use right now is not a predictor of life success. I promise. I promise it's not. We have this little joke at our house. Remember the song We Don't Talk About Bruno from the Disney movie? Bruno was a character who could see the future. That you'd get bald, that your fish would die, that you'd get fat, that you'd get married. He would predict the future. And Bruno was ostracized because of this ability. We want to recognize when our brain is playing Bruno by predicting the future for us. It's typically worst case scenario, just so you know. Now, our brain does this for a very logical reason, because sometimes the worst case scenario happens and it wants us to be prepared for a worst case scenario so that we have a plan in place. So if your brain is trying to scare you that your kid is going to be 35 living in the basement, playing video games, and you're still stuck doing their laundry and cooking their meals, that's Bruno, and he's doing his job. We can thank Bruno for warning us. We can show Bruno that we have a plan in place if that worst case scenario happens. Thank you. My son will not be 35 still living in my basement because I will do X, Y, and Z to ensure that he has a job well enough to pay for himself so that he can go live in somebody else's basement, worst case scenario, and not mine. But honestly, how often does that worst case scenario play out? Hardly ever. And yet our brain is always throwing worst case into our face. The plane is going to crash. Nobody's going to like me. All of these different things usually doesn't happen. So we can say thank you to our brains for warning us and then let it go and move on and consider all the other options. That is step one. We need to do our work so that we don't approach our kid high drama, high moral, this is bad, your life is ruined, none of that. Just like, yeah, it makes sense that you like screens. Honestly, we all like our own favorite flavor of screen. Whether it's texting, playing games, scrolling, we all like our own screen. Just because your kid likes a different screen than you doesn't make it any better or worse. Again, screens are created to appeal to us. They have very smart psychologists that tweak all the little things so that it hits all of our mental buttons so that we keep coming back. Totally normal. We don't need to make it dramatic. We just need to become informed, aware, and able to teach our children so that they're informed and aware. Which brings me to step number 2. Mentor your child and foster these 3 psychological needs. I'm going to backpedal for just a second. The whole purpose of, or topic rather, of this podcast episode was because I was reading a book. It's called Indistractable by Nir Eyal. I'm sure that I just butchered his name. Sorry, Nir. All due respect, I haven't ever heard it pronounced because I read it and didn't listen to it. In chapter 30, he cites a study by Richard Ryan and Edward Deci. It's called the self-determination theory. You can Google it if you want more information on it. Self-determination theory is that the foundation of psychological well-being is just like the 3 macronutrients that make up our entire bodies. We need to consume all 3 of these nutrients to maintain physical health. They are protein, carbs, and lipids. If we cut one of these completely out of our diet, our bodies shut down. We can't live for long amounts of time without protein, carbs, and lipids. Our kids' mental health is the same thing. For mental and emotional health, and this includes adults too, but I'm likening it to our kids right now, are autonomy, which is freedom, choice, relatedness, which is feeling connected to other humans, a sense of belonging, and competence, success or mastery. Those are the 3 psychological things that all human needs for psychological health. Simple in theory and takes time to fine-tune to know what works best for you. I'm going to explain these 3 to you and synthesize it into our teens. But again, I'm not really going to tell you a lot of the how, because that's a waste of both our time. I could say sign your kid up for sports, but guess what? That's not going to apply to everybody. So I'm going to describe them to you, and then you get to decide how the how looks for each member of your family that you want to apply this work to. And I highly suggest you apply it to yourself as well as your kid. Autonomy, freedom, choice. Screens provide this by creating a virtual world that they have more freedom in than the real world. Video games and social media are free to build, explore, and behave in ways that they can't in person. That is the appeal. To overcome this virtual appeal, talk with them about autonomy, what they want, where they can have more autonomy and freedom in a safe way. This can look like, but not limited to, getting a job, definitely not nagging them and hounding them and micromanaging them. Freedom to choose extracurricular activities, their friends, how they spend their time, money, resources. I want to suggest that you give enough autonomy that they will fail in degrees. Because guess what? They actually need to fail to be emotionally resilient. This can look like schoolwork, getting fired from jobs, cut from the team, disappointing others, losing friends, grandparents' disappointments. It can look like all kinds of things. Failing is actually really important because that means they have autonomy. If mommy's helping them every step of the way, they'll never fail, but you're starving them of this hugely important psychological need. Learning how to manage autonomy, my friend, is never less impactful than right now as far as harm that can be done. Every year that they age, it becomes more detrimental for them to fail or to test drive. Right now they have their driver's permit for autonomy. Let them have their go of freedom in the safety of your home. I'm not saying have no rules, safety measures, or consequences. Have all of those things. And make sure that you've discussed them and they know them, and then sit back and let them have a go at it. And then follow through with consequences. That's autonomy. We want them to have as much freedom as they can handle, plus maybe 5 or 10%, so that they can learn their own boundaries. Number 2, relatedness, feeling connected to other humans, a sense of belonging. Again, this means freedom, not neglect. Why are gangs so appealing? Because neglect is present, and gangs give them a sense of belonging to something bigger and more powerful than themselves. And this meets a huge psychological need. Screens also do this with online communities and connections. This is an easy one to beat most of the time because online interactions typically only provide shallow dopamine hits, not deep connections. To meet this need, put down your own screen and interact with your kid. I know that I get stuck with this all the time. I'll get a little bit bored, so I flip open my phone practically subconsciously and just start scrolling Instagram. We have to be really aware of what we are doing. Even just a little hit of boredom can cause us to go to our screen. Schedule time together. Show them that they're important to you. Trap them in the car for a soda run or on the way to somewhere that you're taking them, if that's all that they're interested in. I know a lot of parents say, well, my kid doesn't even want to spend any time with me. That's fine. Capitalize on time that they can't get away from you. And then foster in-person connections in other areas. Good friendships, teams, extended family. This is definitely not a one-parent job, but rather a community effort. Again, this is not 24/7. You have to be dialed into your kid. That's weird. We don't want to be the creepy, weird parent that can't leave our kid alone. Just apply whatever it takes for you or other in-person people to foster in them the connection. In person, how that feels, how to develop and enjoy that. Number 3, competence. This is success. This is mastery. Screens, my friend, are a genius at this. Insta-perfect lives, beating the hardest level, excelling at a game. Right now, my family is obsessed with a game that my husband has on his phone. We just took a little trip for the holiday weekend, and my girls kept snatching his phone and playing this game. We were playing it at the restaurant when we were waiting for food to come. It was so satisfying. It was like a word game. I want to say it's called WoW, maybe. I don't know. But it gives you like 6 letters and it's a crossword puzzle, and you have to create all the different words in the crossword puzzle with like these 6 letters or fewer of the 6 letters. So like cat, catch, catcher, if that makes sense. And you just have the letters and you have the crossword puzzle. Anyway, sounds kind of stupid. We're all obsessed. We wanted to win. We wanted to be faster than each other at coming up with the words, and then we wanted to win as a team. Game makers are not stupid. They're very, very smart. And they're going to pull all of these psychological ways that we get sucked in and create games around them. And winning is one of those huge dopamine hits. So how do we offer this in the real world? How do we foster this feeling of success and mastery within our kids? First one, stop nagging at them. The more you point out negative, the more you need to compliment. Your positive interactions should be 10 to 1. 1 correction to 10 ways you point out that they're doing it right. I have talked to lots of kids, and they basically give up trying because nothing that they try wins their parents' approval. Don't be that parent. Point out all the good things that they do. Put in little corrections here or there. We definitely don't want the corrections to be about them, but about their actions. So not like, that was stupid of you, but rather, what were you thinking that led you to that action? Or something related to the action, not to their quality of person. Competence is closely coupled with autonomy because we need to allow them room to fail with autonomy in order to have room to succeed. Because guess what? They're not going to fail all the time. In fact, they'll hardly ever fail. Their wins are just as important as their failures because they learn from both of them. Teaches competence, teaches autonomy. Again, this doesn't mean that you push our kids more than is helpful. This doesn't mean that we push our kids more than is helpful. We need to find balance. So we're not going to sign them up for everything. Keep them running from morning till night just so that they can feel good at something. It means listening to them, having conversations, finding things that work for the family, for them. All right, wrapping things up. As you think about this, I want you to think of it as like a triad of emotional intelligence or success. Relatedness or connectedness is to ground our kids. It's to provide safety, love, ability to venture into autonomy and competence. You're their safety net. So to reiterate, step number 1 is do your work so that you're not bringing drama into screens. Tech is not the devil, I promise you. But we can act like the devil when we bring drama into it. Then number 2 is to foster these 3 mental emotional needs that every human has, especially your teen: autonomy, relatedness, and competence. Embrace that screens are a part of life and they won't and probably can't function going into adulthood without being tech literate. Focus on balance, not 0 screens equaling success. Honestly, I never thought I would see the day when my son wouldn't act like a video game addict. I was certain he was totally hooked. When I let go and stopped making it a battle, when I did my work, he stopped playing so much, ironically. I don't know if there's correlation or causation there, but a few months after I stopped making it so dramatic, he stopped wanting it so much. Probably because I was more pleasant to be around, and I'm sure other things. But I invite you to give it a try. That is your pivot for the week. Wherever tech is a struggle in your family, I want you to think about the ladder going between the 2 steps or 2 principles, which is to do your work and to support their 3 psychological needs in whatever way feels relevant to you. You don't have to do them all at once. If you are feeling overwhelmed, I just want you to ask yourself, where can I improve 5% or 10%? And then when you've got that down, where can I improve 10% now? This is not an all at once process. Take what feels most helpful to you, most doable, and start there. Okay, my friend, this is what I have for you. I invite you to go to my website, heatherfraser.com, sign up for a free 30-minute consult where we can talk about all of this. I can help you fine-tune where to start if you're struggling knowing where to start or something specific with tech and your kid. I promise I am well-versed in this. We can talk about it. I coach on it all the time. I dealt with it myself. I got you. heatherfraser.com, 30 minutes, boom. You will feel so much better. All right. I look forward to chatting with you personally, and we will also talk next week.